Me 29, almost 30, living in a shoebox apartment in a city that never sleeps and always smells faintly of garbage, work as a graphic designer for a soulless marketing firm. The job pays the bills, barely. My life is a carefully curated collection of feminist think pieces, organic tote bags, and a crippling dependency on oat milk lattes. I don't just believe in the cause, I live it, breathe it, and judge others by it. My friends are all like-minded. We're a coven of progressive, independent women. We quote Judith Butler, we march for reproductive rights, and we collectively scoff at the institution of marriage. It's a construct, a tool of the patriarchy to commodify women, we'd say over $18 cocktails. My 20s were a blur of self-discovery, which mostly involved dating emotionally unavailable men who played the bass and then writing scathing critiques of the patriarchy on my blog. It was empowering. I was convinced I had it all figured out. Life isn't a race. Marriage isn't an achievement. Kids aren't a requirement. I was the master of my own destiny, the captain of my own ship, navigating the treacherous waters of modern womanhood with a well-worn copy of The Second Sex as my compass. And then it started. The first domino to fall was my friend, Chloe. We'd been inseparable since college, bonded by our shared love for obscure indie films and a mutual disdain for rom-coms. She was the one who introduced me to bell hooks. One Tuesday, she called me, her voice an octave higher than usual. "I have news," she chirped. I braced myself. A promotion. A new, even more obscure documentary she wanted to drag me to. Mark proposed. Silence. Mark was fine. He worked in finance, wore salmon-colored shorts unironically, and thought Radiohead was a bit depressing. He was everything we used to make fun of. "Oh," I managed, my voice flat. "Wow, congrats. Aren't you happy for me?" she asked, the chirpiness wavering. "Of course I am," I lied. "It's just unexpected." "Is it?" she said, a defensive edge to her tone. "We've been together for 3 years." "Right, I know, it's just marriage, you know." "What about it?" I wanted to scream. "It's a patriarchal trap, Chloe. He's going to turn you into a suburban housewife who wears matching tracksuits and drives a minivan." But I didn't. I just mumbled something about being surprised and quickly changed the subject. After we hung up, I sat on my tiny IKEA couch, the one I'd proudly assembled myself, and felt a strange, unfamiliar pang in my chest. It wasn't just disappointment, it was envy. I shook my head, disgusted with myself. Envy? Of Chloe and her finance bro? No, it was just the shock. She was the first of our group to defect. A few weeks later, it was another friend, Maya. She didn't get engaged. She announced she was freezing her eggs. "Just in case," she explained to our group over brunch. "I'm not saying I want kids now, but you know. The clock is ticking." The clock, that goddamn clock. I'd spent years dismantling its oppressive ticking in my mind, and here was Maya, my fellow warrior in the fight against biological determinism, willingly strapping it back on. I smiled, nodded, and said all the right things. "That's so smart, Maya, taking control of your fertility." But inside, I was screaming again. My 30th birthday was approaching, a dark cloud on the horizon. I'd always planned to celebrate it with a defiant, single girl in the city blowout. A testament to my independence, my refusal to conform. But now, the idea felt less like a celebration and more like a consolation prize. The panic started subtly. It was a quiet hum of anxiety at first, a background noise to my daily routine. It got louder when I'd scroll through Instagram and see engagement announcements, gender reveal parties, and mortgage approvals. My curated feed of feminist memes and art installations was being invaded by a pastel-colored wave of domesticity. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. The way couples held hands on the subway. The way fathers pushed their kids on the swings in the park. It was like I'd been living in black and white, and suddenly the world was in Technicolor, and I was the only one who couldn't see it. I tried to talk to my remaining single friend, Sarah, about it. "Don't you ever feel like we're missing out?" I asked her one night over cheap wine. She looked at me, her brow furrowed. "Missing out on what? Being someone's property? Losing our identities? No, I mean companionship, a partner." "I have companions," she said, gesturing to me with her wine glass. "I have you, I have Chloe and Maya, even if they've been brainwashed." "It's not the same," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You're just freaking out because you're turning 30, she said, dismissing my concerns with a wave of her hand. It's the patriarchy getting in your head, don't let it win. But it was already winning. The panic escalated. I started having anxiety attacks at work. I'd be sitting at my desk, designing a logo for a new brand of artisanal dog food, and suddenly my chest would tighten, my palms would sweat, and the room would start to spin. My boss, a well-meaning but clueless guy named Kevin, would ask me if I was okay. Just stressed, I'd say, forcing a smile. How could I explain to him that I was having an existential crisis about my ovaries and the societal pressure to procreate? I started looking at myself in the mirror, really looking, for the first time in years. I saw the faint lines around my eyes, the single gray hair that had sprouted near my temple. My body, which I'd always viewed as a vessel for my intellect and a tool for pleasure, suddenly felt like a ticking time bomb. I became obsessed with dating apps. I'd spend hours swiping, my thumb moving in a frantic, desperate dance. I went on a string of terrible dates. There was the guy who told me he was a crypto-anarchist and then tried to pay for his beer with a QR code. There was the one who spent the entire evening talking about his ex-girlfriend and how she'd ruined him for all other women. And then there was the one who, upon learning my age, said, "Wow, 29. You're on the cusp." The cusp of what? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "You know," he said with a smug grin, "the wall." I threw my drink in his face. It wasn't very feminist of me, but it was incredibly satisfying. I deleted the apps. I was done. I would embrace my spinsterhood. I'd buy a cat, maybe two. I'd take up pottery. I would be the cool, eccentric aunt to Chloe's and Maya's children. But the panic didn't go away. It festered, turning into a bitter resentment. I started picking fights with my friends. I accused Chloe of abandoning her principles for a man who probably voted for Trump. I told Maya she was a hypocrite for claiming to be a feminist while simultaneously succumbing to the most basic biological imperative. They were hurt, of course. They called me out on my jealousy and my fear. "This isn't about us and you know it," Chloe said, her voice laced with sadness. "This is about you." She was right, I was a mess. I was a walking contradiction, a feminist who secretly yearned for a white picket fence. I felt like a fraud. My 30th birthday arrived. I'd planned nothing. I told everyone I just wanted a quiet night in. I bought a cheap bottle of wine and a frozen pizza. As I sat on my couch scrolling through my phone, a notification popped up. A memory from 5 years ago. It was a picture of me and Chloe at a protest, our faces painted with slogans, our arms linked. We looked so young, so full of fire and conviction. The caption I'd written was, "Smashing the patriarchy, one protest at a time." Number feminist, number sisters, number the future race female. Tears started to well up in my eyes. What had happened to that girl? Where had all her certainty gone? I felt a wave of self-pity wash over me. I was alone, I was old, and my life had no meaning. I was about to turn off my phone and drown my sorrows in cheap Chardonnay when it buzzed again, a text from my mom. "Happy birthday, sweetie. I know you said you wanted to be alone, but I'm outside. I brought cake." My mom and I have a complicated relationship. She's a product of her generation, a woman who got married at 22 and had 3 kids by 28. She doesn't understand my life, my choices, or my politics. We argue a lot about everything, but she's my mom. I let her in. She was standing there holding a Tupperware container with a lopsided homemade cake inside. "I know it's not much," she said, her eyes scanning my tiny, messy apartment. "It's perfect, Mom," I said, my voice thick with emotion. We sat on my couch eating cake out of the container with forks. We didn't talk much at first. The silence was comfortable, familiar. Then she looked at me, her expression a mixture of concern and love. "Are you happy, honey?" she asked. The question, so simple, so direct, broke me. I started to cry. Not just a few tears, but ugly, heaving sobs. I told her everything. About Chloe and Maya, about the dating apps, about the panic attacks, about feeling like a failure, a fraud. I expected her to say, "I told you so." I expected her to lecture me about how I should have settled down years ago, but she didn't. She just listened, her hand rubbing my back in soothing circles. When I was done, my voice hoarse, my face blotchy, she said, "You know, I was jealous of you for a long time." I looked at her, confused. "Jealous of me? Why?" "Because you had choices," she said. I didn't. "I got married because that's what you did. I had kids because that's what was expected of me. I never had a career, never traveled, never had a life that was just my own." she sighed, a sound filled with a lifetime of unspoken regrets. Don't get me wrong, she continued. I love your father and I love you and your brothers more than anything. But I always wondered, what if? I stared at her, seeing her not just as my mom, but as a woman, a person with her own dreams and disappointments. You have so much freedom, she said, her eyes shining with unshed tears. You can be anything you want to be, you can do anything you want to do, that's an incredible gift. Don't waste it by comparing your life to someone else's. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. She was right. I had been so focused on what I didn't have that I'd completely lost sight of what I did have. I had a job that I was good at, even if I didn't love it. I had friends who, despite my recent behavior, still cared about me. I had a family that, in their own imperfect way, supported me. And most importantly, I had choices. My feminism wasn't about rejecting marriage and motherhood. It was about having the freedom to choose whether or not those things were right for me. And it was about supporting other women in their choices, even if they were different from my own. My panic hadn't been about turning 30, it had been about fear. The fear of making the wrong choice, the fear of ending up alone, the fear of not living up to my own impossible standards. But life isn't about making the perfect choices. It's about making the choices that are right for you in this moment. And it's about having the grace to change your mind, to evolve, to grow. The next day, I called Chloe and Maya and apologized. I told them I was happy for them, and I meant it. I told them I'd been struggling, and they understood. We're still friends, though our lives are on different paths, and that's okay. I started looking for a new job, something that challenged me, something that I was passionate about. I found one at a small, non-profit that works with at-risk youth. It doesn't pay as well, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm making a difference. I haven't sworn off men entirely, but I'm not actively looking for a partner. I'm focusing on myself, on my career, on my friendships. I'm taking a pottery class. I'm terrible at it, but it's fun. I'm planning a solo trip to Vietnam. I'm still a feminist. I still believe in smashing the patriarchy, but my feminism is different now. It's quieter, more personal. It's less about a rigid set of rules and more about a flexible set of values. It's about compassion for myself and for others. It's about recognizing that there is no one right way to be a woman, no one right way to live a life. I'm 31 now, I still live in a shoebox apartment, I still drink oat milk lattes, I don't have it all figured out, not even close, but I'm not panicking anymore. I'm excited about the future, whatever it may hold. Because I've realized that 30 isn't an ending, it's a beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm finally living my own life on my own terms, and that, I think, is the most feminist thing of all.